All right, everybody, it's our Klaus here, and I've been having a hell of a time figuring how to properly approach the presentation of this video, and I've come to the conclusion that I need to more or less just jump right into things. So I'm going to give you the briefest of overviews, and that we're going to be looking at the unparalleled level of influence and power that the adult entertainment industry wields in this world, and how that plays out throughout society and how it plays out in the individual. And interestingly, we're going to be connecting that with Aleister Crowley's practice of sex magic. Again, this is an individual who posited that sexual energy was the most divine and powerful of energy, and that when properly directed and aligned with will and the proper rituals could be used in orgasm to bring about anything that that individual desired to manifest in this world, whether it be physical or influential. So this is at the centerpiece of Crowley's teachings, and it is no short reach to tie him into nearly every pocket of the elite who undoubtedly run most of this world that we all live and experience. And so I'm going to be looking into that connection, what that money could potentially be funding, and how we're given all of these different clues of how deeply interwoven this all is. So as I go through this, I know some of it will be offensive to some of you, and some of these topics are sensitive. Know that I mean no disrespect in any coverage of them, but they are all necessary as a part of this presentation today. So with all of that being said, let's jump in here, and the best place is to pick up where my previous video was dropping a lot of hints. And I'll take this opportunity to thank everybody who took the time to watch, and hello and welcome to all of you who are now a part of this channel as well. It is greatly appreciated. But so let's hone in here, because on the Economist page I was discussing the pre-order was available on November 30th. That's written in red. It's no longer on the site, and it was a date that I took a lot of interest in. As you can see on the right side of your screen, I broke it down in a number of ways for you, showing you all of the different 33s, and throughout the video I used that as a reference point number. So then, when we fast forward to November 30th, it's the day that Mr. New World Order himself, George Bush Sr., is announced dead. And so that was very striking to me, because on one level, he was already brought up in the controversy of this all abysmal cover here, in that there was all of the connections to the 1988 cover with the Phoenix, the burning cash, the one world currency, all of these ideas. Of course, this came out in 1988, the same year that Bush Sr. was elected president. And we discussed that in that previous video. But there's more here. To me, for that to line up and be advertised as such on there, and in connection with everything else I'm going to show you, this was well known, and as always, these are all parts of their ritual and the process that they must go through and satisfy in order to achieve this great work. And so when we look further here, and this came out before Bush Sr. was announced dead, but when we look at this as well, the reveal of the cover, we do have the moon above everything. Now, remember in my video, I was discussing, moon worship. This cover is reverence for the moon. And I made a very compelling argument discussing all aspects of that, especially focusing in on the Egyptian moon god Thoth, who is also ruler of many other aspects of the world. And of course, as I say, they're shaded in with the dark influence, the left arrow to the side. It's all very strange to me. And I come back to this article from WebMD and how it read. And it looks like December 1st, 2018 is the day of Bush Sr.'s death. And why I point that out is because on December 1st, 1947, Aleister Crowley was announced dead. And the amount of time between 47 and 2018 is 71 years. And the numeric value of 71 does give us Thoth, the moon god. And so you might call that one a reach, but I think it is very, very compelling and absolutely worth noting. And again, him passing on the 30th, hailing a big piece of this being done. And I want to show you this clip because I think it has a good piece of, it's just underrepresented, I feel, as far as him pushing this super collider and what that all means. So let's take a look at this and pay attention to the language he uses, where he's got this very Masonic, as above, so below, when he's talking about the moon above, tunneling underground, discovering the secrets of the universe, all of these bits. Check out this clip.
I hosted a meeting on this project in the White House with 7
Let's go back.
Then we come to priorities. The super collider is big priority, a big part of our investment in America's future. And when you talk basic research, this is the Louvre, the pyramids, Niagara Falls, all rolled into one. And where once we reach for the moon above to explore new frontiers of our universe, soon we'll begin to tunnel below to learn about the fundamental question of science, how our universe began. In a couple of weeks,
absolutely encourage you to watch the rest of that, and I'm actually going to direct you towards this video from TruthStream Media, in which they look pretty extensively into that whole issue. There's a lot of fascinating research that they present in that. And something I want to do here to connect all of this further to you, and again, in Bush talking about the super collider, I think a good majority of us are conditioned at this point to just automatically think of CERN when we think of a particle collider, when we think about all of the controversy surrounded with messing with the atoms and discovering the origins of the universe, and all of the research that has been just floated in light, and especially no short supply due to this Shiva statue that's directly out front here. But so now, how does this all tie in? Now, when we look to Crowley and his Book of Lies, we have a very telling excerpt here. And he says, Shiva, the destroyer, is asleep. And when he opens his eye, the universe is destroyed. But the eye of Shiva is also his lingam, or phallus. Shiva is himself the Mahalingam, which unites these symbolisms. So the opening of the eye, the ejaculation of the lingam, the destruction of the universe, and the accomplishment of the great work, all these are different ways of saying the same thing. And so again, a lot of other importance with that deity in front there. And we're going to be talking about NASA later on, so I do want to interject them at this point of the discussion. Inside a video from a while back in which I discussed inverting NASA gives you the Hindu name Asan, which you can see one of the many important meanings down below is Lord Shiva as well as Lord Vishnu. So check out that information on the right side of your screen, because again, it is very, very interesting to consider. But let's get back on the track here. I'm sorry, we're here to talk about the adult entertainment industry and how it connects to all this. So let's go and check out this timeline here. And we have the Lumiere brothers invented cinema and filmed the iconic Arriving Train in 1896. And of course, in thinking about all of this, I think about H.W. being hauled off in that train over to Texas in that big ritual before they finally laid him to rest. But keep going here. This first silent porn came out in France, which has enough occult significance to fill archive upon archive. Please look into it. But notice here, originally it was 7 minutes, and then we're left with only 1.5 minutes. So 7, as we've discussed, number of points on the Seal of Babylon, massively important in many other ways. 15 in the tarot is the devil card. So let's keep going here because we've talked about all of that. You can see here also in 1896, the short film called The Kiss was shot, in which the two actors kissed for the entire 18 seconds. Again, Drawing back to what we've been talking about, 18th tarot card is the moon and all of that reverence. Notice here it was first shown in Ottawa. So if we took a look, here is their flag, and no mystery with the 3 sixes, very easily visible there. Remember, this is where Alanis Morissette was from and where a lot of that research stemmed that I did on her years ago. Of course, the kiss was deemed culturally significant by the U.S. Library of Congress, added into the National Film Registry. It's an important piece, and that's also true about The Big Lebowski, which is the other movie we're going to be discussing today. But you can saunter through the rest of this article if you like, but what I really want to get into here is their discussion of the so-called golden age of porn, and it beginning in 1972, and this is universally held opinion that it was heralded by the film Deep Throat and its release. So let's look at this. Let's take a look at this movie, and a number of things come to mind when I see this page. And again, mind out of the gutter if it's over there. We're going to talk about the innuendo in language and how pornography has corroded a lot of that. But so we'll get there. Notice the release date for this film, June 12th, 1972. June 12th, hey? Just so happens to be George Bush Sr.'s birthday, born in 1924. So when that movie came out, he was 48. And you can see the coding here as well as a bunch of numerology connected with it that's very important. But what I want to point out are these other notable June 12th birthdays. Notice Amschel Mayer Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty. David Rockefeller, chairman, CEO of Chase Manhattan Bank, estimated fortune of $3.3 billion at death. There's that 33 again for you. And again, just to reiterate here, two of the most influential people from the most influential families sharing this birthday. And arguably, Bush Sr. Belonging in that club too. A lot of influence touted. And of course, all of his connections, right, to Skull and Bones. He's the one who a lot of people are kind of introduced to a lot of this through. So again, his passing is a big deal. You can also see these other June 12th birthdays, and Frank and Jordan Peterson, our modern day academic prophet. But we'll get into some of this other business with numbers a little later on here. Something that we could also notice here just with the time, 61 minutes. If we mirror and add that, we get 77. It's an important number because in Crowley's Book of the Law, he, in chapter 77, discusses Layla. And if I can find the image of her in here real quick, I'll let you get a screen. But you know what? I'm not seeing her pop up. There she is. So you can see here, again, just these ideas of fulfilling the work of wickedness, talking about these ideas of being shameless in front of men, taking on the number 156, again, the number of Our Lady Babylon. But let's jump back here. What I want you to see and to think about is that the other president today that we're going to be talking about is Richard Nixon. Him and Bush Sr. are both in The Big Lebowski, so we're just going to keep adding to that pile over there. But I want you to see here that Nixon ordered theaters to stop showing Deep Throat, threatening imprisonment for the actors and filmmakers. And of course, the public instead went to see it in droves. And so much so was it hailed that he was this just releaser of water there. You have Johnny Carson making jokes of, we have Richard Nixon to thank for pushing porn into the mainstream. So what a thing to say there. And we're going to come back to that because Nixon's Watergate scandal broke 5 days after this movie came out. And through that scandal, we have all of the discussion of, right, Deep Throat and the informant that he was. So, wow. But let's keep going. Notice here, in what I was just discussing with Nixon introducing porn to the mainstream and connected to this movie, I want you to see as well that it's cited because of a 1973 hearing by Judge Joel Tyler of Deep Throat being obscene. The ruling inadvertently contributed to the film becoming perhaps the most popular rated X movie of all time. You can see as well up here that it was the first movie inducted into the Zerko Hall of Fame, which is a adult entertainment industry, right? Hall of Fame. And you also have it being so popular and such a staple of pop culture that a non X rated version was made so that people could continue to enjoy it. And so, why do I keep harping on this? Well, take a look here at the allegations from the main actress, Linda Borman. It says here in her first two biographies, she characterized having made the film as a liberating experience. However, in her third and fourth biographies, both of which were written after she had come out with her stories of sexual abuse, rape, and forced prostitution in the porn business, she charged that she had not consented to many of the depicted sexual acts and that she had been coerced to perform by her abusive then husband, Chuck Traynor. She also claimed that Traynor threatened to kill her, brandishing handguns and rifles to control her. Now, as horrible as that is, bear with me, because she goes on and testifies saying virtually every time someone watches that movie, they are watching me be raped. And you might be thinking to yourself, that's just the lowest common denominator that would enjoy that. That's not at all what the mainstream is as far as any of this goes. And I'm telling you right now, you cannot be more wrong. So let's start drawing this over. Notice here, and this is a verifiable statistic, 88.2% of top-rated porn scenes show aggressive acts. 88.2, that is the vast majority, nearly the entirety. And that is insane to think about. And let's link it in here. I want to leave you this article, and we're going to look through this one a bit because it's excellent. This is from earlier this year, talking about the main commodity of the porn industry being abuse and violence. And so what they do in here is he walks through not only the staggering amount of money that is generated by the industry, but they also just discuss how they are normalizing this sort of behavior, how this would be seen as torturous and vile and all of these things, but they're actually making this cult following for, right, this is okay, this is acceptable. And they connect it to the internet and how it effortlessly allows consumers to go elsewhere if your product no longer does what they want to or no longer provides what they want you to provide them. And so everybody's sick, twisted vision of things is what is inspiring this. Now, you can read through here, but what I want to highlight in particular is not only saying that violence is the goal of the pornography, but that it comes in a shape other than physical. So you have all of that symbolism, but what they discuss here is the power that comes in with the violence and how it is coercive, and how one of the most popular series, The Casting Couch, sees women who are down and out looking for a break subjected to sexual exploitation and then discarded. So then you have this here, right? They appear hesitant to engage, but ultimately give in. And so this is supposed to be fictional. It's supposed to be a portrayal. But I want you to see here, because they have just some great ways of putting this, it's worth noting that portrayal here is in quotation marks, because the line between fiction and reality within pornography is undoubtedly blurred. They go on to say the fact that this is a fictional encounter does nothing for the reality of what viewers want to see. They enjoy watching a woman being pressured into having sex. The fact that she's hesitant only serves to sexually excite and encourage. So then they provide some of the most depraved titles that they could find for pornographies, but which are very, very common themes. And they go on to talk about how they are used to dehumanize, demean, and to advocate for violence and coercion towards women. You can see one of their examples is Broke Mom, Anal, and Swallow Scam. They go on here to say it's clear the idea of a mother suffering economic hardship and resorting to pornography is a turn on for the viewer, more so because they know it's a scam. Violent and painful anal sex is what the viewer wants, and it's what the viewer gets. So now, yes, this all connects back to Crowley. And I want to find this proper bit for you, and it is right here, in which he's saying the central aspect of eroticism, religious ritual, and mystical experience is similar, and the power lies in the dialectic or play between taboo and transgression, through which one systematically constructs and then oversteps all laws. Not a matter of simple nudity, eroticism arises in the dialectic of veiling and revealing, clothing and striptease, between the creation of sexual taboos and the exhilarating experience of overstepping them. So too an ecstatic mystical experience or religious rites, such as blood sacrifices, one must first create an aura of purity and sanctity before one can defile it with violence, transgression, or the overturning of the law. And so again, you can read further here, which I highly suggest you do, to see what he posits as the purpose of this sexual transgression. And then when you look back here again, these ideas of innocence, I mean, you have these ideas of teenagers and moms with no, I mean, it's a stark contrast. And here you have them addressing the opposite side of this argument, that porn is just fantasy, should not be subjected to rigorous moral examination. But I love this quote. They say, not even taking into account that whatever happens on screen is happening to a real woman, you would have to be intentionally ignorant to believe that these depictions exist in a vacuum and don't have an influence on how real-world attitudes towards sex and women. They then go on to provide a number of stories and articles, including this one from the British Medical Journal examining the increasing normalization of anal sex amongst teenagers. You can see here they describe it, anal heterosex often appearing painful, risky, and coercive, particularly for women, but interviewees frequently cited pornography as the explanation for anal sex. But other key elements included competition, as far as, right, someone else let him do it, so I should let him do it. And again, this idea of coercion playing in. And you can read this through more thoroughly for a really just thorough examination of this. So all of that being said, I do want to shift over here just quickly. So you can see this is an article, I believe, somebody with a Catholic magazine, Crisis Magazine. But what he's talking about in here is how it's not just limited to the actual sexual depictions that we see. He talks about eroticism being this very versatile evil, and one of the things he gets into is discussing how it affects language and the way that words are used and abused and the violence that's put forward in them. And again, thinking about those titles, that is right there in our face. But this other idea he discusses, the essential nature of its evil is to provide artificial access to what is what is not morally accessible for the sake of some immediate stimulus, some visceral gratification. In other words, it's a sensationally skewed experience of the sacred. And so again, manipulating that energy, that's such a huge piece of this, and it's so very important. And so you can see here that he says the underlying principle at work is refusal to engage in the real and revelry in the unreal. And so he goes on to talk about how this is all facilitated through the internet, through the advancements that we see in technology. And of course, with those advancements and in this line of discussion, one can't help but bring up virtual reality porn, let alone the advances we're having in what they're talking about, artificially intelligent sex robots being sentient and capable of feeling sorrow. I'll see if I can find that link for you and include it. But you have here your brain on porn, and they discuss that in people's experience, it tends to push boundaries with highly explicit and violent imagery, and talks about how it has a strong potential to become addictive and more extreme over time. So here's just a series of people who have talked about their experiences with this technology and how it's just completely wrecked their ability to interact with the opposite sex. It's really sad, and it's really disturbing how they reference, if they were teenagers or growing up with this sort of technology, they would have been unable to not develop an addiction to it in an unhealthy way. So all of that, so phenomenally interesting. And now let's look at who's benefiting from all of this. That's where we're really going with this, right? Where's the money? Not only is there the energy aspect of this, but there's always the money. And what is that funding? Who's getting it? And looking at this article, this is from November of last year, 2017. And again, just the three X's, the 24th letter, 2 and 4 is 6, the 666. It's one of the most common things seen with the adult entertainment industry are those three X's. But take a look at this. They talk about it generating almost $100 billion each year, more than the GDP of Panama and Slovenia put together. Now, with all that money being made, they say this: despite the fact that the material they produce is widely available, well marketed, and easy to find, most of the companies producing pornography are not that easy to understand when it comes to their ownership and structure. Many of the adult entertainment companies behind the powerhouses of internet porn are owned by holding companies linked to defunct businesses and are listed with offshore's headquarters. In short, many big names in the porn industry are doing all they can to remain as invisible as possible. And I'll leave you this link because this is a wonderful article in which they did a very extensive job trying to track down some of the people behind these companies. There's a hilarious little excerpt from an Economist article in here as well. But so what you will find if you read this is that even though some companies will talk to this investigator, is never revealed who the actual ones at the reins are. And that's a massively important piece of all of this, because all these offshore accounts, all of this unaccounted for money, right? It's absolutely somewhere. So now let's get down here. Top 10 adult entertainment companies. And really, I'm just going to hone in on MindGeek here because they're listed at the very top. You can see here their site Pornhub receives more traffic than the likes of Amazon, Instagram, and eBay, and that the site receives a monthly 3.42 billion hits. So massively prevalent. And notice here reported to be worth over $750 million. Wow. What I want to do is look into this company with you. So the reason I've got this question here about, there's always the thing about, is half the internet really pornography? And even if it's not, if you were to say internet to somebody and tell them to say the first word that comes to mind, I think a very significant portion of them, joking or not, would say porn or pornography. But so anyways, getting into MindGeek here, take a look at this. Founded by, amongst others, a Fabian, and again, look into the Fabian Society if you're not familiar. You have the privately held adult industry internet pornography company MindGeek. And the reason I show you the Wikipedia page first is because when we go to their actual website, it does not at all seem like it would be their website. Look at this: industry-leading exclusive technologies driving unparalleled performance. And all over you have, again, all this global symbolism, this golden symbolism, this light symbolism. And you can see here by the numbers the amount of sad souls that are utilizing their service, how many lives they're touching, right? And yeah, that goes for the 1,000+ employees. Questionable. But look at this. MindGeek continues to drive the state of technology forward, developing industry-leading solutions, enabling faster, more efficient delivery of content every second to millions of customers worldwide. Now you can scroll through this, and you can see all the things they talk about doing. They do utilize Amazon Cloud as well, so for what that's worth in tracking you, which we'll get into here shortly, let's take a look at some of the more some more information here. So again, global presence, you can read all this. If you want, you can watch the video in which they say, right, want to see more? And you'll see all of these people up here tell you absolutely nothing about the corporation. You can also notice here, in this just shitty little collection of clip art that they have a clock with 9:23. Again, that's a big apocalyptic date a lot of people have thrown around. But I want to get you down here so you can see this quote. It says, interested in taking big data to the next level? With over 100 million daily visitors to some of the world's largest trafficked websites, we're uncovering trends and user habits overnight that take others months to gather. So that's troubling. Now, let's look at some more of their services offered. So they have the standard algorithm, social media stuff, ranking very heavily though here. Notice in their hosting, combined to rank in the top 10 globally for traffic levels, letting MindGeek stand alongside a select few who dominate the cyber landscape. But let's get down here into their ad platform, in that they use this company called Traffic Junkie. And look at what they say they can do. Traffic Junkie has seen tremendous growth through its user-friendly self-serve system, which enables advertisers and publishers to reach their goals in real time. Traffic Junkie offers many different targeting options, such as auto-optimization and geo-channel or device targeting. Traffic Junkie aims to provide advertisers with flexible options to make their target audience easily accessible. So really helping out with getting those ads your way. And what's worth noting here, since they say they're using device targeting, is that Pornhub, MindGeek's biggest porn site, has had a lot of issues with accusations of malware being all over their site. And so again, just creating more and more bugs for them to burrow into. But just look at, again, just the power of this place. Our content delivery network infrastructure is fully redundant, supported by 2 of the world's largest CDN providers. Again, massive in its scope to make sure that they're always running at all times. So you can read further into this article, or into this website, and there are a lot of things there that I absolutely think are worth mentioning. But I'm going to use this to start springboarding us back now towards some of the other pieces that I want to start integrating in with all of this. And part of it here, in connecting this all in as we're approaching the Big Lebowski, is their headquarters in Los Angeles, where that movie takes place. And they're located on the 7th floor. And again, with this number 7. And so we'll pull it aside here. On the left side of your screen, you can see a number of things I've stated in the past. I'll leave you a link that gives you even more, because there's a tremendous amount. But notice here with the number 7, the 7 seals, the vials of wrath, the 7 trumpets, the 7 stars, all of those things from Revelations. And I was looking into it, and I found something saying that the number 7 appears 55 times throughout Revelations. And in thinking about how we're connecting this all back to Richard Nixon, he appeared on the cover of Time magazine 55 times. And that number is very peculiar because it's the geometric value for Satan and New Age. And you can see here that if we multiply 5 and 5, we ultimately reduce the number down to 7. Not only that, but Nixon's name has another hidden 55 in it. And you can see here in reducing to 5 in that 5-letter name, giving us that 55. And so instead of adding it, instead of multiplying it, we could add it, and it would give us the number 10. And why that number is so important is because it is the number of pins on a bowling alley, right? In a bowling lane, right? God knows how many are in the alley, but on the lane, when you're playing the game, there are 10 pins there. And I'm going to talk a lot about Nixon and his role here, and this poster is from the Big Lebowski, as they cite in this article. But what I really want to draw your attention to, because I'll get to a lot of this later, is that Obama wanted to replace Nixon's underground bowling alley with a basketball court. And you'll notice here that he received a letter from the Bowlers Proprietors Association of America saying that, where is it here? Suggesting that removing the alley could have a long-term impact on his political prospects. Obama later said in an interview with Barbara Walters that he might leave the bowling alley alone after all. And so those people were able to get to him and say, hey, you don't understand why this is so significant. So looking at the number 10 here and why it's so important with all of this, bowling pins are set up in the same way as the symbol that the Pythagoreans used to take their sacred oath, this tetrasis, whatever you want to call it, tetrad. And you knock it down as a part of bowling with a giant zero, right? The silence that you are holding with devil horns out if you're using the conventional grip. So all of that is incredibly interesting. And so if you're looking into this Pythagorean symbol, you can see here that they had it related to the four seasons, planetary motions, music, the cosmos, space, all of it, understanding higher knowledge. And you can look into it further and see its connections with the tree of life. Very fascinating, and I'll keep connecting it for you as we move through here. But so some other things worth noting with the number 10 represents the completion of a cycle. In tarot, it represents the wheel cards, it's changing, it's Capricorns, the 10th sign, again, devil symbolism. And we have these ideas of the 10 commandments and the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments, being very significant pieces for law and order, for structure. So no shortfall for this 10. And 10 is considered a perfect number. So is 7, to be fair. But 10 is considered a perfect number. And in bowling, a perfect game is a score of 300. Now, that number corresponds to the Aeon or the Judgment Tarot card, which is, again, the destroying of all things. And what I want to keep building on here is that Nixon had 2 back-to-back perfect games, allegedly. 2 scores of 300 back-to-back. If you drop those zeros, he has that nice 33 right there. And it's also worth mentioning that his underground bowling alley was built 22 years after Truman's original one in 1947, which I'm going to get to in just a minute here. But what I want you to see is that Nixon, since we're talking about him, and since he comes up so much in all of this, Nixon is an anagram for in Nox, as in the Night of Pan. And this is the mystical state that represents the stage of ego death in the process of spiritual attainment. And I think it's interesting to note that he's the only president to have resigned, and again, that idea of ego death. But you can see here it talks about Pan being the giver and the taker of life, and his night is the time of symbolic death, where the adept experiences unification with the all through the ecstatic destruction of the ego and the self. In a more general sense, the state where one transcends all limitations and experiences oneness with the universe. Now, take this all further here. From Crowley, it is explained that the Night of Pan, mystically called Nox, is this O is, and this O is identified with the O in this word. N is the tarot symbol death, and the X or cross is the sign of the phallus. Nox adds to 210, which symbolizes the reduction of duality to unity, and thence to negativity, and is thus a hieroglyph of the great work. And so there's a lot to unpack in this. One of the things that makes it a little easier to stomach is when you see that Richard Nixon shares coding with Eye of Horus, mind control, dissociation, and gutter balls, which is one of the most notorious scenes in The Big Lebowski. And you do have the definite moon worship here, and I'm going to talk about this at length in just a bit. But this phallic worship that we have for Nox here, and again, how you would tie that in to what Crowley just referred to with the crucifix. But so all of that so very interesting. And while we're here, Let's look at a very similar movie, The Nice Guys. And in a bowling alley, they have this magazine with Nixon on the cover, and it says hours up top, which is an anagram for Horace. Over his mouth is a wad of cash with an R, and it looks like an R to me. Again, that 18th letter, that moon warship. Right before that, Gosling's character pulls out his R, and then he flashes us this nice 33. And so it's very interesting to me how Nixon plays out in that movie as being associated with the person you see before you die. But with all of that, let's hone it back in here, because we're still just kind of talking about bowling. So in bowling, there's the phrase kingpin. Again, K and P, the 11th and 16th letters. Through numerology, we get 666, and that word itself is 7 letters. If you look at the coding for kingpin, you do have Baphomet and the Beast all written in there. All of that, again, tying back to, remember how I said, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here just to show you this, that in chapter 33 of the Book of Lies, it was entitled Baphomet. This is in the gutter ball scene, and if you count all the figures here, there are 32 pin girls, and the deity marks the 33rd one here. And so again, that is the kingpin. You can see she is in the center of everything else. And how that ties in here. Again, I'll get into this in just a moment. Let's back up because, again, we've still got a ways to go, and this is endlessly fascinating. So checking this out, when we look at the inauguration of the bowling alley in the White House, here's from the History Channel, and it was our 33rd president, right? President Truman, who died at age 88, who saw that alley come in. On his first throw, he knocked down 7 out of 10 pins. That's why I got this up here, because no way, right? Yep, 7 out of 10. There's that 7 again. On that date, April 25th, that was the 115th day of that year. Freemasons, Law and Order, A New World. Now, why I'm pointing that coding out is because 1947 had some other big stuff going on. Take a look here, and you can see it's the same year that the National Security Act was enacted, was the United States Department of Defense's first year of operation. National Security Council and the Central Intelligence Agency were also established that same year. What's even more interesting is those 4 things happened on the same day, which is September 18th, 1947. I have a whole video discussing that, the importance of that date. But notice here the difference between the inauguration of the White House bowling alley and the new world ushered in here in America on the 18th with all of these agencies is a difference of 147 days, or 4 months, 25 days. So again, that brings us to 425. But for all intensive purposes, it gives us that number 147, which is the same simple value as the Big Lebowski. So that's a pretty major piece in showing you how this all connects in here, all right? And so with that coding, with that 147, you have this idea of in the gutter, the trump card, phallic symbol, all these things, right? So let's go back to our images, and there's numerous covers here. 2 of them involve bowling. This one at the alley, you'll notice the center of it is the gutter. And gutter balls, as I mentioned, is a central part of the film. So you have that connection right there. Now, if you take it a step further and you look at this piece, and again, remembering that the dude represents the Most High, that's why he's written as a stoner, this symbolism is very profound as he's traveling through the abyss and unifying himself with the opposing force. But on top of that, if you follow on the outside here, you see very clearly a shaft and then a mushroom head atop of it there. So there's that phallic symbol that Big Lebowski coding is referencing to. And there's yet another piece here, because again, this whole movie centers around the pornography industry. It's how it starts, is when Jackie Treehorn, the porn producer's goons, come to Lebowski's looking for Bunny. And again, with this movie following the White Rabbit, is literally a Caucasian porn actress named Bunny following the White Rabbit through this obscure, seemingly plot. and has all of this concept just hidden within it here. Notice as well, Big Lebowski shares coding with explosion of energy, Jesus and Satan, illusion and duality, right? All of these massive pieces. So take a look through all of that because it is absolutely fascinating. Now, Lebowski, the Big Lebowski, is in reference to the man that Bunny is married to, not to the dude. And so when we're thinking about Lebowski and we look at the coding, we see Freemason, MK Ultra, Satanism, right? These big pieces that we'd be interested in. And when we look at what the word Lebowski means, it means head, which is connected to the Sun Tarot card. Now, what's very interesting is if we change out head for Lebowski, Lebowski for head, and we look at that coding for the big head, we get this idea of false flag. Well, that's really interesting in and of itself. But let's tie it in even further because here comes Bush Sr. in this movie in one of the opening scenes, and he's giving his speech about this aggression will not stand while the dude is writing a check dated 9/11/1991. 10 years, again, the significance of that number, before the actual 2001 attacks. So how far out is that? How far out is that? And when we consider this even further, 69 being a very sexualized number, but it is the chapter in Book of Lies that Crowley came under scrutiny under from other secret societies because they said you gave away the importance of sex magic. You gave away the key to all of the rituals. It is a largely held belief that the secret to nature, to all the Masonic practices, to the universe lie within sexual ritual, and that is easily researchable. And if you look at that Crowley article that I've been citing throughout here, you'll be able to read up on that yourself. But so that's very interesting. And of course, inverted as 96 becomes Lebowski. And you see the connections that we have there. But now let's keep reeling through this because the Big Lebowski is said to have the key to the city of Pasadena. And this is something that you can easily verify by either watching the movie or looking at the script. But look here, key to the city of Pasadena, same coding as President Donald Trump, and one world dictatorship, and Trump assassination, and the Great Apocalypse, and population reduction. Major points. When we add in the sacred "the" in front of that for the key to the city of Pasadena, it now gives us the coding for Airborne Holographic Project, which is one of the alternative names for NASA's Blue Beam Project, which is what we're working towards discussing. So let's also think with Pasadena, California. It's 18 letters. There's your moon again. It's the location of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and again, lots of research there. It's also the location for this Laurel Electro-Optical Systems, who are said to be manufacturers of electromagnetic weaponry. And so you can find here in this this article here where they verify the location, is actually from a book, but talking about the mind control implications of this technology, that they had been successful with it and that it would be useful for some very devious purposes. I'll leave you that. And let's also look at this real quick because kind of forever tying HW to bowling is this clip. And again, the importance of this movie and all of this. But check this out. They've got the barnyard thing. I'm going to pause it there. But again, Bush going to take this role and he just goes down, and this certainly lives in infamy. It really makes no sense how that came about. Any case, let's jump back here because Pasadena is very interesting. All of its zip codes start with 911. Pasadena, California has coding for Skull and Bones, as well as the Path of Resh, End of the World, and Illumination. So all of that stunningly important. Again, fundamentally, if we're looking at the word sex and we break down each letter, it gives us 156. That is the number of Our Lady Babylon. If we look at the geometric values for 156, you have the 666 written out, 33 written out, as above, so below written out. And there you have Planet Trump from that Economist cover written out. So again, all of this goes endlessly deep. Pornography itself is 11 letters. It's the lust card, the Babylon card, and you can just see it, okay? So I'm going to leave this bit here with Gutterball since we've already touched on it. And let's kind of fly through these last bits here because I want to try to keep this under an hour if at all possible. But while at the bowling alley with Donnie and Walter, his friends, the dude is discussing this whole plot with Bunny and her kidnapping herself. And you'll notice in this particularly revealing scene, behind Walter we have hit the head, and we have the number 27, which is prominent throughout this entire scene. And so when we're breaking down the coding for hit the head, do notice here that we have reference to Trump, false flags, and the New Age, as well as California. And we also have up top Endgame false flag, which I just found out is the name of the new Avengers movie for next year, is going to be Endgame. So all of this massively playing in there. Go back again. When they're walking away, this is a blurry shot, but it says hit the head open. And so when we look into the coding for that, we find even more to be revealed here because it shares coding with Donald Trump and it shares coding with George H.W. Bush, Hadron Collider, the Cliff-Off, number 7, behind the 11, all these things we've been talking about, the internet, Master Mason, on and on. This is a Pez theory number. This is a major number. But so with that, you keep going here. And with this, we're getting into where the dude first crosses into the abyss and meeting Jackie Treehorn. And we have this woman without her top that is being bounced. I don't want this to get flagged. I'm not going to show it. But I do think a really big flag to look for is going to be toplessness for women being made legal. I think there could be something really, really interesting around that happening as an event. But so go back here though and just notice the hedonistic setup of this and how it harkens back to ancient times, and again just paganistic practices. And you have the man walking up here, Jackie Treehorn, and the dude meets him, and notice again these ideas of duality, the fire, the water. And Treehorn eventually drugs the dude who passes out, and again notice these dualistic opposing triangles which we could unite and make a hexagram. But all of that's so important. You notice here, and sorry, I'll do a couple more. For gutter balls, it starts out saying Jackie Treehorn presents. So take a look here, and you see that coding goes towards the 36 triangle, which is the number 666, as well as 2018 disaster in the extraterrestrial contact. Makes me wonder. We're running out of time, but who knows? Some very important days coming up in December. But look at the values down below for that. President Donald J. Trump, psychotronic weapons, psychological operation, mind control techniques, and another phrasing of this airborne hologram project. So how very interesting that Trump and that blue beam stuff keeps coming up here. But let's take a look at this gutter balls, right? Because in it, the dude descends this stairway, right? Because he's going down, he's traveling through the abyss. As I stated earlier, he's greeted by the 33 figures in front of him, including the kingpin in the center, the bull, who he unites himself with. Again, this great work, this uniting of opposing sides. And again, the idea of sexuality and the act of sex being a unification of the opposing forces. And then they hit a strike. It breaks through back into the abyss. How far out? How just far out? So let's get into the white rabbit that he's chasing the whole time here. This is the last stretch. Bunny Lebowski. And do notice in here that Bunny is spelled in this movie I-E. Right? They chose to have it that way. So when I look at it in coding, I am going to be using that I-E. So I don't want to hear any guff about that. But what we see here when we're learning out about her real name, Von Knudsen, we have more sexual energy here, right? The barns that she came from, this is clearly a phallus going into the barn. You can even see this darkened line here. And again, her leaning on the triangle. All the things. Played by Tara Reid. TNR gives us 2018. Again, wondering about that big event. And both those names being 4 letters, so 44. Interestingly, the real name, Von Knudsen, does share the same coding with Donald J. Trump and Project Bluebeam and Shankarayana, which is the combined form, as you can see on the right side of your screen, of Lord Shiva and Vishnu. So again, the unifying of destroying and protecting. Very, very profound connections that we're coming across here. You can also see these ideas of nuclear weapon, the next big one, and of course Morning Star, ever important in this. Now, one of the lines that Bunny is notorious for in this movie is telling the dude that she'll suck his cock for $1,000. If you look at the coding for that phrase, "I'll suck your cock," it's President Trump and the second 9/11 and the United Nations and history repeating and all things being revealed. You can see it's all there. And wow. Bunny La Jolla, the other name that she is given in all of this, is the same as Viva Las Vegas. It's also the same as Maud Lebowski, the woman who wants the dude's semen, which is weird because her dad, who's wealthy, or dad just in general, right, has that same last name. But you'll notice here in this shared coding is also Nemo program and blood sacrifices. So she's singing Viva Las Vegas in this scene. That's the whole reason I have that picture there. And then when we have Nemo, remember this is NASA, and this is a part of the world's only underwater research facility. Remember when I broke this symbolism down, these represent 33 because there's nothing connecting. It's 2 groups of 3. And this is very clearly a mirrored NWO. The Star of Bethlehem up here. Again, the inverted triangle down below. And really, doesn't this just look like a giant fucking bowling ball at this point? And I just come out and say that. You can just see how this is all connected. The damn research facility's called Aquarius. And all of this talk of the New Age is ushering in the age of Aquarius. It goes on and on. In any case, they have the revelation that Bunny kidnapped herself. Again, this is in the script. And you can see here references to Trump MAGA, right? Make America Great Again, the Freemasons, bullhorns, the path of silence, right? All the things we've been talking about. And also with that coding, it's the same as Judgment and the Star, which is the reason I had this, is to remind you those are the 2 cards that are tilted on this 2017 Economist cover. So again, a hidden reading, and I've talked about that a lot. It's also the same as Zion's Coming King, Donald John Trump written out, A Perfect Illusion, all these major things that we've gone into. And so again, you know, my toes are about broken from kicking this horse, but I swear y'all are going to see it. Wrapping up here, since we have so many references to this Bluebeam project, I did want to show you the coding for it here. And you can see these huge pieces: Order Out of Chaos, Manifest Destiny, I Make All Things New, Economic Meltdown, Age of Illumination. And the economic meltdown is one of the first signs that is said to, that is going to come about with the playing out of Project Bluebeam. So, you know, take a look through this article and see what you can get out of it. There's a ton of fascinating information in here, discussing the types of technology used to implement this, and how it's going to be this giant show in the sky in which essentially every different geographic area will be shown their religious figure and the, you know, playing out of their end of days But then all of those figures are going to unite into one, and that is going to be the Antichrist, and that is going to be used to really push this new world religion. So I'll leave you all of this because it is far too much for me to go into at this point of video at excruciating depth, because we're already at the 1 hour mark here. But I will leave you that, and you will see how all of this coding connects directly into what that project aims to do, and that's overturn everything. And you'll notice as well, NASA Bluebeam project is the same as 138 written out, as well as the Trump train. But again, to draw you into that 138, it's right back here with Donald Trump and Pez theory and all the massive pieces. So with that, the very last thing that I'm going to squeeze in here for those of you still hanging with me, and I really appreciate you, is this avian idea, the adult video news magazine, said to be to pornography what Billboard magazine is to the record industry, to the music industry. And so when we look into adult video news, you see here for the coding, New World America, as well as New World Order, the false prophet, number of the beast, the age of Aquarius, across the abyss, right? Once we make it past this 2019 darkness, right? All of that lying in wait, all of that coded in so very well, okay? The age of Aquarius, all in there. What I want to draw you into is the abbreviation AVN. ES value does give us that nice 222. It does connect in with all of this bowling information. If I go back here, we see Truman Bowling Alley. It's the number 37. It's the room that it's located in, which is just like this AVN piece here. And so I'm going to tie this all back one more time to HW here before I show you where I'm going with this avian bit. But so look at this.
Weeks ago, I hosted a meeting on this project in the White House with 7 preeminent scientists, including 4 Nobel Prize winners, 4 Nobel laureates. And they started talking about quarks and quenches, and I wondered for a minute if they had all spent the weekend bird hunting. But nevertheless,
bird hunting, right? And everybody gets a nice big kick out of that. But referencing bird hunting, remember this is the Super Collider talk still. And avian means relating to birds, typically. And what I found is that it's this very interesting government contract company founded by retired U.S. Navy test pilots, one of which was a U.S. presidential candidate and the other some sort of disgraced, I don't know, Imagineer, Disney Imagineer. So again, Disney is at the forefront, you know, for the sexual perversion stuff, frankly. So to tie that in there at the end, I think is really quite a big deal. And if we're looking at their stuff here, you see that this guy's got this rock somewhere. I'm just going to type it in here. The very end, it's the last thing they talk about. This Walt Disney guy, he's got this rock on his desk and it has the word gratitude inscribed on it. And so if we look at the coding for gratitude, you do see here, again, Masonic secret, the order of death, and down below 9/11, Zionism, the world, Masonry, Cliff Oath, all the major pieces, okay? All of it there. And, you know, to really just round this out, I'm gonna highlight just this research for you to keep looking into. Bunny rug, those are the 2 things that the dude is chasing. And I'll let you see this excerpt here so you can see all of that connection. Log jamming and gutter balls are the 2 pornographies from Jackie Treehorn in The Big Lebowski. And when we combine them, you can see here world banking collapse, United World, right? Reveals Saturn. All these major pieces. I'll go down so you can see pornography here. It's coding with the Illuminati. All the important bits there with Jackie Treehorn. And you know, I'll just end it with this here. because this is from the most recent SNL. Aquaman. This movie comes out December 21st, 12 and 21 for 33. But this really just gets at it, right? It's constantly in your face with him reading the Playboy behind his Bible there, and them just rubbing in your face the religious ceremonies connected with sexual energy and how it all contributes to ushering in this new age and new world. So, with all of that being said, I am tremendously grateful for all of you who made it to the end here, and I hope that it revealed something interesting to you. Again, thank you so very much for taking the time to watch this. I'm hoping to go on and do a couple of live talks here in the not too distant future, so hopefully I can expand on some areas y'all might be curious on. But as always, please be well.